That was not too bad. What's a... Hey! Welcome to Gavin Games for, I don't know, it's the 20-something, 21st of May, Tuesday. It's good to see how's everybody doing. Big release day. We're going to be getting into that, of course. Thank you, Mo. We're going to be talking about I still don't know the name of the goddamn game. Hellblade 2. We were up late last night streaming the reviews, streamed a little bit of it, maybe the first like 30 minutes of it. Played a lot more today. I'll have a lot to say about that. We'll see where the reviews stand. We may be having Chan Park come on today. If not, I'm just going to say, Chan, here's the link. Call whenever you want. We'll put you on. But hopefully it's today. But I know yesterday he got caught up in a meeting, and then Friday we got our signals crossed. So we'll see where it goes. But anyway, point is, it's good to see everybody. How are you? Before we get to the Hellblade and the X Defiant, both big releases today, I was talking, I don't remember who it was that brought this up yesterday, about a new arcade game for like the Dave & Buster's of the world, which is like based on NBA Jam. It's not based on, but it's clearly heavily inspired by. It's developed by Raw Thrills, which is Eugene Jarvis's company. If you don't know Eugene Jarvis, shame on you. Defender, Cruis'n USA, Robotron. But I saw the trailer today. It does look pretty good. And it just got me thinking, though. It got me thinking about when the days, I mean, there used to be days where you'd go into a grocery store, a laundromat, whatever, and there would be arcade games there. And obviously those days are long behind us. The only time that you ever are going to see a video game anymore, like a cabinet, is more than likely, unless you're like at a trade show or something, is you're going to see it at the, an actual place that, like Dave & Buster's or in Vegas or whatnot, correct? Now, let me show it to you when we're talking about this real quick. This is it. It's called NBA Superstars, and it's pretty much a spiritual successor. Excuse me. And it just got me thinking, though. It's like, if these guys were to put a game out like this, and it wasn't in the usual place like a Dave & Buster's, if it was in a place like, a grocery store, right? Or a bar, not like a retro arcade bar, just a bar. Do you think that you think there's any shot in hell of a game like this doing well, or do you think it's just, if anybody wants to sit at a bar or kids want to go to the goddamn grocery store with their parents and they're bored, they'll play on their phones? Like, do you think there's no way this is ever coming back, right? Unless you're talking about those kinds of play. The reason I ask is it's like I look at this and I go, this is only fun if you're playing with friends or if you're playing with strangers, but it's like on the same machine. I'm sure there'll be a home version of this if it's a hit, but these sports games never do all that well when they are sports arcade games, unless they're simulations, they kind of tank. But I love games like this, man. I just really fucking love games like this. And, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a sign I just need to spend more time at Dave & Buster's, but Dave & Buster's is so, I don't know. I used to take my kids there when they were really young. We had a good time. But you go now, it's like, I don't know. There's not much to do there. I don't know. They still have arcades there. Gungam says the movie theater and bowling alley. That's true. That's a good point. I actually was at the movie theater the other day, and I hadn't been to this theater in a while, and they did have a nice section of the arcade. Nothing is wrong with Dave & Buster's. I mean, it's just that unless you're going there with your kids or a party, I'm not gonna just run down to Dave. It's too far away and it's a pain to go and it's crowded and all that shit. That's the reason. Game does look good though. I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, that's called NBA Superstars. Yeah, let me go real quick before we get into Hellblade. Let me go real quick to Dave & Buster's. I just want to see what their latest games are, because maybe it is time for a trick. I'm reading Tang. Maybe it is time for a trip to Dave & Buster's. I want to see what they got. Is there anything crazy good? And it's like cruising, okay, so there's a Wicked Tuna game, a fishing game, Top Gun Maverick VR, like I want to put on somebody's fucking headset. Dodgeball. Okay, that's new. All right, well, I don't know. I'll have Star Trek, Halo. All right, can I see what they are? I don't know. Maybe we're going to Vegas next month, so maybe I'll head to an arcade in Vegas and catch up on all this shit. Dave & Buster's seems like going to a mini theme park attraction versus a local arcade, says Mutant Mo. Oh yeah, fuck yeah. It definitely doesn't feel like an old school arcade, but it is a neat place. Remember that one they had in Vegas, the one that was the DreamWorks, GameWorks, and they had, Event Games, Brad. They had that one thing where you could sit in that chair and you had a gun and it lifted you up to as high as the ceiling and then back down and you were like shooting at a wall across the arcade. I don't know if you ever went there, but that was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see if this brings the people back to the arcades. I don't know. Probably not. But I'm still, hey, if you're Eugene Jarvis and you've been able to make a career making the video games that are actual arcade cabinets your whole fucking career, that's pretty amazing that he is able to continue to run a company and all they do is stand up arcade machines or machines in general, Okay, before we get into Helldivers 2, X Defiant came out today. I played it early with the beta or whatever it was a couple of weeks ago. I really liked it. They were having some matchmaking problems earlier today. It's launch day. I'd say give them a break, but it's like that, I don't know. It's a professional game. Go fuck yourselves. But I played it again later this afternoon. I like it a lot. I don't know if it's going to replace Call of Duty for me, but I do like very much that it's free to play and it's not Battle Royale. And I haven't noticed any pay for power yet. And I know this week is Multiverses and this. So between this, Multiverses, and Fortnite, I kind of feel a members only game night coming on pretty soon. So keep your ear to the train tracks if you're into such shenanigans. Listen to this. We got a couple of super chats coming in early. J Lord drops both of them. He says, have you considered returning to development by crowdfunding, which would give you total creative control? Not really. I don't want to return to development right now. Maybe one day. I have one game I'd like to make. If I had the freedom to make one more game, It is a adventure walking sim kind of game. It's not arty-farty. It's like a political thriller. It's very cool, I think. And I would like to make that. But, you know, I'm very happy trying to do this right now. So, but maybe down the road. But thank you for that super chat. And thank you for this one, J Lord. He says, I think you be conscious of real world injustice, passionately believe in social justice as I do. It's true. And still make a game like Duke Nukem Land of the Babes. Yes, you can. Again, I think what you're basically saying is, can you be socially conscious and passionate about injustice and all that shit, but still make something like, you know, a Duke Nukem game? Sure. But the difference is that you would probably look at it now, or I certainly would, and go, you know, what was just sort of body stupid fun and what was actually putting, you know, kind of toxic messages out into the world. I would make those changes because, as Maya Angelou said, and then Oprah ripped it off, but she knew she ripped it off because she attributed it to Maya Angelou. When you know better, you do better, right? So I got no problem, as I've said ad nauseum, making games and playing games that are filled with sex and violence and bodiness. I just, you know, I don't want to put negative shit out there, but that's not negative to me. Somebody was asking earlier, speaking of the Paper Mario game, which is coming out the 23rd, a couple days from now. I've never played it, so I probably will because it's getting great reviews. And somebody's like, what do you think about the trans character? And if you don't know what he's talking about, I guess there was a character in either the original Western version, or maybe they had already done a remake, I don't know, but there was a version of it that a lot of people in the West played where there was a character that in Japan was a trans woman, girl, whatever. I think it was like a kid. I don't know. I didn't play it. I just saw a screenshot. And they made some changes to it when it came over West. I don't know why, but now the new version has the character back to being a trans person, which of course I think is great. I'm sure some people will bitch and complain about it, but they probably really don't have very much going on in their fucking lives if that bothers them. Paper Mario 1000 Year Door was awesome, but I played it. I played it, but you should play it, Jack. I'm going to play Paper Mario. Is that the 1000 Year Door is what it's called? Tips on how to get women to be your girlfriend. Don't worry about it would be my tip. Do you well, and the women who show up for you being done well are the women who have a good chance of being your girlfriend. But I think if you go searching, you know, if you're really hard up for sex, go get a sex worker. They're nice ladies. They'll treat you right if you find some good ones, and it'll take the edge off. And in the meantime, work on you, and then the women who respond to that, then you'll have yourself an honest relationship. You won't have become a person that isn't really you in order to get a girl. Then you got to spend a bunch of fucking time trying to keep up appearances. Okay. Death Proof says it's not a trans person. It's a man who lives as a woman. He doesn't. Whatever. I've read the headlines. They said it was a trans person. It doesn't really matter to me. What the official term is when it comes to that character, because I don't know. Okay, let's talk about Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2, I think that was a 5 to 7 year journey. The creative director of the studio, what's his name? I don't know his name, but Ninja Theory, and also the co-founder left towards the beginning. He left recently, but he was involved, I guess, a little bit in this game, is my understanding. But he was the director of the last one. I'm not sure why he left. It came out last night, this morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, California time. I've played it. Let's go first to the reviews, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this game. So, Hellblade Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. Big anticipated title, which is going to be kicking off, hopefully, if this is the year that Xbox finally puts their balls on the table and pulls something off. This will be kicking it off, followed by Avowed and Indiana Jones and the Starfield DLC that drops, Call of Duty on Game Pass, on and on and on. But so 82 It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I know last night it was 81. Usually by the time you wake up, anything that's an 81 when you go to bed, you wake up and it's probably like a 74. But we're at an 82 right now on this thing. People seem to like it. I think there's only one negative review. I'll tell you, and there's some, the usual suspects that are all over it, like the Xbox, sites are giving it 100, whatever. Fuck. I mean, it's just like, fuck off. How stupid. But, other sites that aren't as beholden. Eurogamer gave it 100. Games Radar gave it 100. A bunch of 9s, a bunch of 90s. So I played this last night, played it on the stream. And my first blush was I hated it. I was just kind of like... it was just so pretentious, and it was so slow, and it was so full of itself that it made me angry, right? I could not hang out with this game for very long. And so I did a tweet about it, and I said, I do this sometimes with games, either when I'm streaming them, like Last of Us 2, I hated for the same reasons at the beginning. But when I'm streaming a game, these are not the best games for me to stream because they don't have my full attention. I'm talking to the chat. I'm trying to make sure the chat is having a good time. And so I went to bed and I tweeted before I went to bed. I tweeted when I was in bed. I tweeted before I went to bed. I says to myself and to the Twitter folks, I said, well, I'm going to wake up in the morning, spend a little more time with it because I know myself well enough now that maybe, the jury's still out. So I woke up and sure enough, I played it for about 2.5 hours today. And I really like it so far. The opening, I didn't play the first one. So I don't have, one of the biggest criticisms of it is it hasn't really advanced at a gameplay level from what the first one was. And for me, since I didn't play it, it's all kind of new to me. Like the combat's pretty fun. The core kind of puzzle tactic of like lining up images to create a singular image. Kind of a 3D layered puzzle thing. We've seen it in other games, but that's kind of new for me. That mechanic hasn't outweighed its welcome. The beginning though, because I hadn't played it, it comes on so strong with its, we're art, we're important, we're saying something meaningful, and the music and it's just like, it's not welcoming if you are someone like me that finds pretentiousness really difficult to stomach. But once I got past that, and once I found the run button, the game does nothing to tell you anything. And I get it. We don't want to put anything on the screen. It's not less immersive. Well, maybe it's less immersive, but is it less immersive than people hitting the power button because they don't know how to run? They don't know what the attack buttons do. They don't know there's a dodge button. So there is a run button, and so that certainly helped. But it got a lot better. The story has gotten interesting. The performances are great. The visuals, of course, are phenomenal. I understand that they are limiting themselves on, like you can go into photo mode and it's like, wow, this is not a cutscene. This is not pre-rendered. This is real time. It's amazing the level of detail. And it's really cool, and I'm not one of these Digital Foundry people. I don't give a fuck. I'm playing it on my PC through Xbox Live or Game Pass. I'm sure PlayStation 5 could do something similar. I don't care, but it is really impressive visually, and the environments are impressive. The audio is impressive. The performances are very well done. It's really good. It's really good. And somebody wrote me and said, "Well, Jaffe, I don't understand how is it that you can complain about Sony's walking games, but you can't complain but you like this?" And I'm like, well, first off, I don't hate most of Sony's first-party games. I love Last of Us 2. I love the first God of War that Corey did, the 2018. But do I complain about Last of Us 1? Do I complain about Ragnarok, yeah, I fucking do. But that's not me complaining about a genre. That's me complaining about those games. What I'll say about this one, though, is this one, unlike Ragnarok, for example, Ragnarok suffers because it has its feet in both camps. And when you do that, that's great if you can pull it off. But if you can't do both brilliantly, then it just illuminates the weaknesses of the title, right? This game, I'm under no illusions when I go in that I'm going to be playing some big action adventure game where I'm solving lots of puzzles, picking up inventory, speccing out my character, making choices on a light RPG tree. But when you get me in with that, which God of War Ragnarok does very, very well, and then you bore me through some of the pretentious storytelling ad nauseum in that game, then it falls apart. But when you come to this game, you're like, oh, this is basically a walking sim. It's not Dear Esther. It's not even Gone Home. There's a little more gameplay than that. Not as much gameplay, traditional gameplay, as Indica, which is out on console this week as well, which is also about mental health. And I think it's a better game, Indica. But because this is so focused on what it is, you don't have that kind of schism. You don't have that kind of pacing speed bump in the road that really fucks you up when you think you're going to get one thing and then it slows down to a crawl. This thing is always just like, look, we're not trying to be anything other than this kind of arty-farty thing, and it happens to be pretty fucking good. Hellblade 2 says Eternal is so obsessed with telling its slow burn story and slowing down to stop and smell the fishy combat, it forgets the fun and the challenge. Well, again, a lot of people mistake my criticisms of games because they think I'm one of these guys that says every game has to be fun. I've never been that guy. I've always been the guy that says every game should be engaging, unless it's a game that is intentionally like some sort of art piece or performance art, which is literally meant to be like in this game, for example. And again, I didn't play the first one, but in this game, and I guess this goes for the first one as well, she's got these voices in her head and they really don't shut up. And unlike Indica, which if you don't know Indica, it's about this nun and she has the narrator ends up being this voice in her head who may or may not be the devil, and it's driving her batshit. And when she turns off that voice by hitting a button, she has abilities to see the world in one way, and when she listens to the voice, she sees the world in a different way. And that's kind of what constitutes the puzzles of the game, and that's really clever and really, really cool. This game feels like, the first 40 minutes with it last night, I wanted to fucking throw it out the window because I was like, shut the fuck up. The voices. And I understand there is a metaphor there where it's like, see, that's what it's like to have, I don't know, constant anxiety or multiple personality disorder, whatever it is that they're playing with as a metaphor for mental or whatever mental disorder they're utilizing in the game. And so I can appreciate that if that was the point, but after a while, it's like, ladies, because it's women voices for the most part, shut the fuck up. You do get used to it though. But no, I don't. Oh, okay. Well, schizophrenia is. What do you mean by schizophrenia? Ultra awesome, because some people mistake multiple personality disorder for schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, my understanding is, it's a break with reality, and sometimes you don't even move. But again, I haven't played it enough to know. This is the mental disorder they're talking about. Jeremy says the voices in this game are not a gameplay thing. It's representative of what people in psychosis experience every day. Don't put "for fuck's sake" at the end of your fucking comment, Jeremy. What I'm telling you is, in Indica, she also has voices in her head, and they are also indicative of someone who's struggling with some sort of mental disorder. And they also manage to take those voices and make them into gameplay, not just presentation. So no, I will applaud both games, but I will certainly applaud Indica because it is capable of doing it and doing it in a gameplay way, which is fucking awesome. Okay, so she had psychoses at the end of the last game. They just can't remove it when it's apart. Well, they can, but anyway, though, I mean, look, it's good. It's good. It's a good game. I recommend it. And people are like, oh, it's $50. Well, I'm not going to buy it. It's on Game Pass, right? So and it's weird to see the hate that it's getting in this particular chat. I mean, again, you gotta be a slave to the medium only, nothing else. Because last night my knee jerk was to hate it too, but you give it a little bit of time, and it's not this terrible fucking thing you guys are saying. It's really well done. It's engaging. It's interesting. And even though I do not know if it's going to merit a sequel, and I don't know what it means that the lead walked away, the co-founder walked away before the game shipped, it does make me wonder, is it a sequel? Is it, are they actually, I know, they're just because you greenlight something doesn't mean it's going to ship, but are they going to make a third one, or are they just going to keep a very talented team on board? It's kind of a shame to go, this game clearly indicates they're a pretty good goddamn team, just like the Hi-Fi Rush team. It's a real fucking shame that the Hi-Fi Rush guys, when you see this and you see that, and you're like, guys, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? I understand that maybe they weren't able to sort of ship something that was, they need to either lower their budget or raise their budget, but the AA is not working for the Tango Gameworks guys. Fine. But unless Miyazaki did pull most of the talent away, why would you shut that studio down? Just give them a little redirect. I don't fucking know. Young Wolf, shut the fuck up. Young Wolf says 5-hour boring game. Maybe it is, but you know what? Here's my guess. My guess is you haven't played it. Now, if you have, I'll right here on this very fucking show, man, I will apologize and say, you know what, Young Wolf, you'll so-and-so, you were right. But otherwise, sit down, shut the fuck up, and learn something. You ain't played the goddamn game, motherfucker, and you know you ain't played the goddamn game. Chan Park is here, folks. Chan Park, if you don't know, he is a nasty piece of work. I'm kidding. Chan Park is the creator, along with a studio that he'll tell you about, of PlayStation Allstars Battle Royale on the PS3. I don't give a fuck if you have Ultimate Game Pass. Did you play it? He says, I'd rather play a bloated fun game than a 5-hour boring game. You haven't played it, motherfucker. How do you know anything about it? Okay, we are going to get back to Hellblade 2 a little bit later in the show. But for now, let us go live to Gaza, where we've been trying to get him on the show for the last couple of days, but he has been trying to fucking survive. But he is coming on. Isn't that terrible to make light of that? I'm not making light of it. I'm saying that's where he lives. Here is Chan Park. Dun, 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 dun. What's up, Chan?
What's going on, Dave?
Well, I'm just doing a show. Are you willing to take calls from the audience sometime during this little chat?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. How's Chan's audio, everybody? Can you guys hear it? No, he was not really in Gaza. I'm kidding. Can you guys hear him pretty well, or is he too quiet? Chan, I'm trying to remember when you and I he has an echo. Let me fix that. Easy fix. Boom, it's fixed. Okay, so Chan, I remember you and I met up in Foster City. We were both working for PlayStation at the time. It was, I guess, SISA or whatever. How did you even get involved? I don't want to do a whole spanning career thing because, nobody cares. Nobody cares how, not because of you, but anybody. It's like if somebody brings on The Rock, I don't need to hear about The Rock in kindergarten. No. But I do want to know, because I don't remember. I just remember you were suddenly there. And you were the first guy there that I actually felt was real competition for me and my skill set. And we'll talk about that. But how did you wind up in Foster City working at PlayStation?
Well, I pitched Alan. My partners and I, we started a development company after 3DO, left 3DO, and we pitched Sony a 3D breakdancing game. And Alan, you, and Mike Guillaume all kind of heard the pitch, but Alan was the one that was kind of interested. And then Kelly walked in one meeting and he's like, "Don't spend too much money." And we all looked at each other like, "Oh shit, what does that mean?" So we signed a deal. And
what was the company called?
It was called Triple Beam.
Okay.
And, we actually signed a deal and we were underway. But like a week after or something like that, Alan called back and said, "Sorry, we're gonna have to cancel. We picked up Busted Groove from Square Enix." And I was all like, "Oh fuck, what a bummer!" Like we thought we were in. We were kind of at complete last legs at that point. We had no other prospects.
Right.
And so on the spot, when Alan called to tell me he was getting like canceling, I go, "Hey, do you have any jobs open?"
Okay.
And he was a real sweetheart. He's like, "There's not really a spot open, but I could create one." So he made a job for me.
That's excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then were you in LA with 3DO and you came up to Foster City then, or what?
No, 3DO was in
Burlingame or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, Menlo Park, something like that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So Chan shows up, and let me ask you this, because this I don't know if this pisses you off or not, because you were at Sony for a long time. You came down to Santa Monica with this, and then you went, I think, to Technicolor. You were at a couple other places, but when I say you were one of my biggest competition or my only competition, you were the only other guy there that I would say that I would really point to and say, that's a great idea guy. And I know today that's a bad word in video games. People hate, and I wanted to know what you think about that, because I hear so often it's like everybody has ideas. It's about the execution. And it's like, yeah, of course it's about the execution. But everybody, in my opinion, doesn't have good commercial, compelling, interesting ideas. And so if you can get great execution with a great hook, it's kind of like, otherwise you're like a musician that may be the best musician in music, but you don't write good pop songs. It's like you still have to be able to make something compelling. So I always looked at you and said that was one of your great strengths. I mean, was that how you saw yourself, and is that how you see yourself now? Or are you one of these everyone's got ideas and it's really not a big deal kind of guy?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That's very flattering for you to say. Yeah, I think that looking back, and when we were talking before, I kind of mentioned this too, where I thought that definitely more of my strength was conceptual. It was, I think, really kind of tapped into what was pop culture at the time, what I thought was sort of like sort of cool or different ideas that weren't represented in gaming. Gaming was still, pretty much in its nascency back when we started, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like geekiness to it in a way that was cool in terms of gaming and in terms of its history, but it wasn't really sort of like up to date in terms of like simple things like hip hop. That's why we had a 3D breakdancing game.
Weren't you also the guy, were you the one that came up with, was it Homies?
It was called B-Boy.
Not the breakdancing game. There was like...
No, there was another one where it was sort of like what Grand Theft Auto eventually became.
Okay.
And it was weird because we actually pitched GT Interactive, who was the publisher of Grand Theft at the time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before I joined Sony, and no, it was really like the 3D breakdancing game that started off with Alan, but after that was when I was sort of like working with the team that came off of Blasto to come up with another idea at the time.
Yes, that's right. And you did Daredevils was the first one I remember that I just thought was the Stuntman was the coolest fucking thing, right?
That was when we came down to Santa Monica. But remember that when we were up in Foster City, that's when Alan was all like, "You guys got to smoke some weed and come up with some game ideas." And I was with Ben Harrison and Matt Duncan.
Were you guys having a hard time getting a green light from Alan?
Yeah.
And see, this is what's weird. Alan, everybody seemed to struggle to get a green light. I never struggled. And I don't think I was better or my ideas were better. Maybe I was a better bullshit pitch guy. I have no idea what it was. But I was always like, just name a movie that Alan likes and mention the word Mobius and you're off to the races. It's easy. But he sent you guys out to the desert, right? Or he said that. You guys went and smoked pot to come up with ideas?
Yeah, we definitely did that. But I mean, I mean, honestly, Dave, like it was easy to trust you because you were also a proven entity, right? And also, I don't
With
just mean that from that standpoint, but I was talking to you about before, and I think in the last week when I joined late, and someone was asking like, "How do you decide what to cut?" I was like, "Dude, one of your strengths has always been a conviction of your vision and
yeah,
knowing exactly what you want to build." And anytime someone would ask you what that game was about, there was no hesitation in terms of identifying exactly the clarity of your vision. Now, whether it was achievable or not, or whatever, like, fuck all that. Like, that's all stuff to figure out, right? But what you wanted to make was very, very clear to you. Not just from a vision standpoint, but I think also from like, you knew what the mechanics were. You knew, what you would be doing in terms of your interface during that moment of gameplay or throughout the game.
was that something that you? Well, I know on Daredevils because that was always the. If I remember Daredevils, I mean, can you pitch just at a high level so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, it was like a stunt master's game. It was basically a bunch of mini stunts that you play that ultimately would result in creating like a film, right? A collection of all of your greatest stunts. And so it was really about figuring out what those stunts were going to be, the different kinds of stunts, setting up the cameras and the props and all of those kinds of things. So at the time, we thought it was kind of an interesting idea. But yeah, I think where you were going was like the mechanic side of things was where I kind of felt always a little bit lacking. That's not
Yeah,
something that
I
I came
looking
up.
back now, I wish they would have maybe identified that, or someone did and said, let's pair Chan with, a Mike Yam or someone who's really good at the
They,
mechanic side.
they did, but like the difficult challenge there was they made Mike my manager.
Oh, that doesn't work.
So that's difficult when I need somebody in terms of that supporting role for mechanic side. And again, like Mike was brilliant. He helped
Oh
me a
yeah,
lot.
Mike was
We
always a
all
better designer than I was,
we
hands
all
down.
helped each other, and
Yeah,
he was so great in terms of sharing his knowledge. But it's just the dynamic was a little difficult, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
So
yeah,
you come down to Foster City and you start this thing called Psycho 50, correct? Now Psycho 50 was basically Crazy Taxi, but it was hip hop. I mean, that was the gist, right? Or
yeah, it was like sort of renegade cops, in an underworld. But it was very sort of again like drawing from black exploitation, honestly, and some hip
Mhm.
hop. So it was very very stylized. That's the one thing. In addition to sort of concept, I felt like I had a pretty strong idea of what I wanted, in terms of stylization. And
Right.
of course, it's super easy when you're working with Charlie Wen and Cecil
Oh
as
my
your main concept artist.
god.
It's almost like
Yeah.
it's cheating. I mean, you could have the stupidest game in the world, and the concept is like, oh my god, this is incredible.
I know.
So
I
yeah,
know. Yeah, Charlie Wynn went on to do well, now he's the creative director over at Epic at Fortnite, but
right,
he went on to do all the Marvel, the first
yeah,
4 or 5 movies of all the costumes of the characters. He did all the God of War. Him and Cecil and Scott Sita. I mean, these guys, man,
monsters.
I mean, thank God now I don't have to pay them when you use AI. But back in the day, back in the day, they were monsters. They were. But so Psycho. Here's what I remember. So Shannon was the producer. I'm in jury duty, 2001. And it's like 9/11 had just happened. Everybody was crazy and stuff, understandably. And she calls me and says, "What do we do about Psycho 50?" And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And apparently, and I know we all felt this. I mean, let me start with this. When you first saw Grand Theft Auto 3 and Psycho had not, it had been greenlit, but it was not out, of course. Did you just, what was your response?
Um, I mean, I think everybody looked at that and said, "Wow," in terms of type of gameplay and what they can do in terms of that open world and all those kinds of things. I felt like at that point, I felt like the game was very, very different in terms of its spirit. And had I gone down further with that game, I wanted to make it more like playing up the cheesiness, the campiness, the stylization, really making it more about mini games and these mini missions, and building a stronger narrative arc through the experience,
Right.
following the different cops. But yeah, I felt like they were kind of very different games. I think the only thing that it sort of had in common were sort of the urban themes. but I really imagine the gameplay being a lot more, I don't know, arcadey, stylized.
Sure. Yeah. But I think for me, what the conversation was that kept coming up, and that's why I was asking, is that because GTA 3 was the first 3D game I can remember that certainly was big, but maybe one of the first, if ever, on console that was, again, over the shoulder. I don't mean like there were some N64 games like Silicon Valley and stuff where you could get out of the cars and or Blast Core and all that stuff. But the minute you could get in and out of vehicles in an open 3D world, and it was about cops and robbers, everybody was assuming Psycho would do that. And obviously that team wasn't built to do that. That game wasn't built to do that. And I guess, that's what I told Shannon. I said, I think the game could be a lot of fun, but how are you guys going to make it clear that it is more of an arcade game? And it's not trying to be an immersive sim. And then I went back to jury duty and we fucking hung that motherfucker that we were trying to throw in jail. But anyway, what was that? I mean, was it a sucker punch? I bring it up because games get canceled all the time, and I kind of told my stories, but I would love for you to kind of share a little bit of that before we get into Allstars. Just this idea of like, I mean, is that writing on the wall, or was it like you go into work on a Tuesday and you go home and you're like, my game's canceled? Like, I mean, what was that? How did you see that coming?
I think that when you are developing games, I get the sense that there are a lot of people in this situation, but certainly athletes, when they have to perform in a situation and they're kind of in that borderline and they're like, oh shit, like my games haven't been going so well. I'm getting rotated out here and there. I'm spending a little bit more time on the bench. And now, so I think for me, in video game development, you always have the sense that nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. You're always trying to go after milestones. You're always trying to see like how well you can achieve that milestone or impress, the people that are evaluating it, all of those things. Also evaluating your own stance. And again, like the clarity of vision. I think that's the one thing that I always admired about you. And that's what filled other people with confidence, especially at those moments where they're pivotal. They're like, oh, we don't know.
It's not working. Yeah.
Those moments. And I'd be kind of like, oh, because of my inexperience, my doubts about my mechanics or those kinds of designs, maybe even feeling that a little bit more. But you'd be like, fuck you. I know what I'm doing. Like, this is what it is. If you can't see it, you're the idiot. You're the one that can't see it. That's not my problem. I'm the game director. This is what we're building. And
right.
It was sort of that kind of like, that conviction in your vision that made people go like, oh, well, I mean, we all felt like you knew what the fuck you were doing.
But you were a lot more popular at work than I was. That's the truth. Well, people liked you more than me. So that's what you have to, that's what you got to pay for it with that is people think you're an asshole.
Dave, also, this is like in hindsight, right? It's like sort of when you look back, and I think you can see, I use like sports analogies where people are like, hey, they were a player. They played in the NBA or whatever. They were like maybe okay. They were not like superstars. But then they become a coach, and then they'll be like, oh, my calling was as a coach.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. What was that? What was the fucking Pat Riley, right?
Pat Riley.
I mean, good Lord.
All these successful coaches, there were only a few that were really, really good players. And then you can look at a lot of players that were really great and they sucked as coaches, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's so many of those. And so I think later on, I really kind of realized that, I was really grateful to try my hand as a director, as a designer, as a producer. And I think all of those things, those experiences really groomed me to what I think ultimately I feel like was my calling, was to build teams and to manage teams.
Yeah. So let's get, let's get, well, before we get to that, let's stay in the time for a brief moment, because there's a couple things we've talked about. One is, the way you described me is not inaccurate back then in terms of fuck you, we're going to do this. And also the way you talk about Becker saying, go out and smoke weed to come up with ideas. I don't think you were at Foster City yet when it was Alan's 40th birthday and we got strippers to come in.
No.
But that was the thing, right? And I bring it up because, I don't even know, you certainly would, and you're still active in the industry. But for me, those days fit perfectly with the way my brain worked and still works. But I don't think I would be tolerated in most companies today. I think they would just be like, he's an asshole. And not that I was mean, as I always liked people, but my focus was on protecting the player. And, but you, as somebody who has always done a much better job at reading the room. I got guys in the chat right now going, I just met Chan and I already like him better than Jaffe. Fuck you, motherfucker. I understand. Go fuck yourself. God, these idiots. But the point, though, is that, have you noticed as you've continued in the industry, a shift? Like the old days, really, I'm not trying to glamorize or romanticize them. There were some fun things we got to do. And it's also kind of shitty when you look back now and go, I guess we should have asked the women or I guess the gay dudes what they felt about having strippers come into the office, female strippers, right? I mean, do you see, that change has been pretty clear for you, but I mean, what is that like now dealing with? Is it too corporate? Like, is it lost the fun or it's still fun?
No, I think it's lost a lot of the fun. I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, I think it's just a part of getting old as well. You kind of look back in the days, the heyday that we remember, and really kind of find a lot more fun and a lot more. I think like people weren't so serious about shit. You know what I mean? Everything's so fucking serious. It's not just game development, but I'm sure all of corporate America is a little bit more uptight than it used to be. I mean, again, like, back in the day, like when Alan was saying, go just smoke some weed and shit. I mean, it wasn't even like medical marijuana, like you had to.
I mean, yeah. Can you imagine today going and saying my boss at Sony PlayStation, his advice was to go out to the desert or go home and smoke a bunch of pot?
Dude, there's so many things that looking back that I know I could have been fired for. Dude, I broke our producer's leg, Barclay, by accident over at Paradox. And that was an interesting conversation with
Paradox. That was the alien Crash Bandicoot game, right?
No, well, Paradox was the developer that Corey came out of, and Adam and
Paradox,
and
the
Eric.
Shaolin Monks game.
Yes.
Right. And weren't you working on that? Didn't you work on Shaolin Monks?
I was Shaolin Monks at the time, and when that got killed.
Wait, okay, so let's go back. Shaolin Monks was a game that was a Sony Santa Monica game at first?
It was Sony Santa Monica game. It was. I was working with Paradox, who was a game developer.
Yes.
And we were looking to do sort of like an open world, like martial arts based Eastern martial arts mythology with all of like the Tibetan and Chinese and like Shinto gods and all of the weird demons that you see in Tibetan religion. So it was an amalgam of all those things. And it was called, that's why it's called Mystic Monks. It was all this, mystical backgrounds and environments and so forth. But yeah, that's when we engaged.
But then that ended up becoming Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, or they shipped something with this, right?
They did. So part of that team salvaged what we had and built it into a Mortal Kombat thing ultimately. And then and then a few of those guys obviously came over to Santa Monica. Corey
and Eric and Derek and absolutely those guys. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh my God. Okay. I'd forgotten about Shaolin Monks. And so eventually though you find so I want to talk about the drugs a little bit more though. Because I'm just saying that it's so amazing to me that I look back not just at me but at Alan. Like we were talking the other day about how Alan doesn't really like to be put in the spotlight for his contributions to the industry, and all the people who worked with him. You talk about somebody being a great coach. I mean, Alan really made so many people's lives better, and so many great games exist because of him, but he really doesn't want you to know about it, which is fine. I mean, that's his prerogative. But I've never encountered anybody like him in any other role in this business. I mean, maybe it's because he was part Japanese, part American, and he was just able to walk that line perfectly in a company like Sony or something. I don't know, but you know, he was always like, dude, go fucking do DMT and shit and get some mushrooms and shit. And, you know, I mean, he was the guy that greenlit a game that was like a mind controlled video game that George Weising was bringing in with this fucking thing you put on your head and shit, you know? He was and is awesome, but I'm trying to remember how we ended up at Linda Joe's house smoking the pot. That was the first time I ever smoked pot. And it was a Sony party, not like an official Sony party, but it was at somebody's.
Just a bunch of Sony people there.
Yeah, and I go into the back room, and it's you and a couple other Sony people, and you had a bong made out of a Diet Coke bottle. Or a Coke bottle. It was a big fucking bottle. It was a soda bottle. I don't know what.
But it was. I believe it was. It was not Linda's, but it was her. It was property of the Hans, her family's bong.
Okay.
But
okay.
I did not bring the bong because we were at her place.
Okay.
But what I heard was when you came in and we were talking, you mentioned something like, "I tried it a couple of times, but
it never works." Right. I tried it and doesn't do anything.
Works. And I was like, you know,
yeah.
Don't worry about that, Dave. I'll help you out with that. So.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, that is the only time in my life. Well, the second time in my life I've had a spiritual experience. I was so high, man. It was wonderful.
You were properly up near like what you would imagine someone on like something like peyote or at least shrooms or something.
I was seeing cherubs flying around. It was awesome.
Was super awesome to see.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So
Fantasia.
Oh yeah.
And just, you know, like tripping balls.
I was bowing to the television, I remember, and somebody asked me, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Can't you see the divine in this box?" And they're just
Isn't that fucking crazy? Like just that one
delightful.
moment could be
delightful. No, the whole I had a moment with that. I had a moment in the backyard of Linda's house when we did that. And I just saw these doors stretching up to infinity. It was like Pixar Monsters Inc. And at the end, you know, and I was just like going, I need to be real careful around drugs because I want to explore all these doors. And I'm like, I'm not like going, I want to escape. I'm not like want to be reckless with my life, but I never knew there was this veil that you could lift and see a whole nother version of reality. I want to go exploring now, you know? And, so first off, thank you. I've always wanted to say thank you for that experience.
Right on,
it has totally helped me become the pothead I am today. And I'm a fan. I'm trying to me and Colin Moriarty, I don't know if you know Colin, are trying to get some DMT to do this summer because I've never done that. Have you ever done DMT?
I have not, no.
Oh, I want to do the DMT.
Read plenty about it though. Seems very interesting.
I know.
You know what? DMT seems like the expressway to sort of Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think people who are like inexperienced, it could be very, very daunting experience.
Yes.
But I feel like, you know, you see all these, you know, monks and so forth, they meditate for years and years and years. And it's sort of like getting a white belt and going to a black belt. So by the time you're astral projecting, you're all like,
it's a shortcut.
It's, you know, the DMT is a shortcut. They took the long way, but they're prepared for it. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Years and years of training. And
yeah, no, I'm skipping right to the end of the book. I don't.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm going to see what's going to happen.
That's the Western way. That's
absolutely.
And I want to hear all about it.
Well, you should join us. We're doing it in San Diego, so you know, I don't know if those days are long behind you or it's like you just don't want your family to know. But anyway, we're around. Let us know, Chan. But okay, so. Shannon, and if you don't know, I know you know Shannon, but if you're listening, you don't know Shannon. Shannon ran Sony Santa Monica for a long time after Alan left. But when I left Sony, a year later, she had left Sony and she set up a company called Broodworks. And she was doing basically the pitch was Smash Bros, but it's for PlayStation. And Alan leaves. She gets the opportunity to come back to Sony and run Santa Monica. And she picks you and says, hey, come take over Broodworks and do this game. Were you working with her at the time, or she just kind of reached out from recollection and said Chan would be good at this?
No. So again, Alan helped out there too. And you were still there. So I called Alan after I got let go of Technicolor. So
okay.
That was like unexpected. I didn't like, for me, Technicolor was unexpected because I started that whole team and everything. So they let me go. I called Alan and I was like, you should talk to Shannon. So I talked to Shannon, and that day we basically kind of like sealed the deal. I came on board, and at that time we didn't really have an idea. There wasn't anything.
Okay, so you came on to Broodworks before she
All
was
Stars.
leaving.
Yeah, she was there. We had actually about maybe 4 or 5 months together, working through an idea, and then eventually coming up with the idea of some sort of all-star game.
Yeah.
And at that time, that's when we were like, okay, that's maybe a cool idea. And right towards the end of the prototype, when we were pitching, that's when she moved over to
Santa Monica.
and then I kind of took over Broodworks, but we changed the name to Superbot by then.
Right.
So I eventually kind of took over and then changed the name to Superbot. And at that time was just before you were leaving. And that's why I was saying to you, you were so super supportive and helpful, and you gave us Kratos and Sweet Tooth, which again, like for All Stars, meant everything, because everything was about, well, who are you going to give us now? I mean, who else is in it, right? Like, you're coming to us. Well, we're only going to give it to you if you got some other good characters, right?
Yeah, but as I said to you when you told me that, I mean, I get if you're going to Eidos to get Lara Croft, or you're going to, I guess, Universal to get Crash, but I always found it so goofy that Shu, and I think it was Shu at the time, didn't just say, this is what's happening. You guys at Naughty Dog, you guys at Insomniac, you guys at Santa Monica, of course, make sure they're not, fucking up the characters, not intentionally, but just out of maybe something they don't know. But it's not a negotiation. It's the same company. We want to make Smash Bros. You're not going to negotiate. Can we please get Nathan Drake? It's like, fuck you. You're getting Nathan Drake. So I always just thought it was the goofiest fucking thing anyway, that you guys had to kind of go hat in hand to these companies and hope that you just got the support. I was like, what are you talking about?
When we started this idea, one of the key risks was exactly that we wouldn't be able to get the character roster. And, I don't know if I ever told you, we can get into this later, but man, the character roster was, of course, like a whole other beast, right? With fan expectations.
Oh, yeah.
The limitations in terms of Crash and Spyro, people were really, like, rightfully complaining about for a long time. But it was just, Sony handled their IP in a very different way. And so we knew we would be up against it. Also because Heroes in the Move, which had a certain subset of characters that were all Foster City characters, had just recently come out, not done all that great.
That was like the network Crash and like multiplayer co-op thing.
It was a multiplayer co-op thing, but specifically with the Move controller, right? Because that was a hot thing at the time. And so, because that didn't do so well, there was some concern about doing another all-star type of thing when that one wasn't so successful. And oddly enough, when we're talking about building this game, they're like, can you make this support the Move controller? We're like, Are you serious? Like, why would you want to do that? Like, number one, it would make the game horrible, and number two, you already did a collection of heroes in a move controlled game, even called Heroes on the Move. Why would you want to make the same? But this goes back to kind of what you were talking about, I think, in a lot of your other podcasts. It's sort of, there's so many compromises that you're always asked to make, right?
Yeah.
And you're not the one that has the money. So I think that's the one thing.
And then you have to kind of some sort of pretend you're into it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, my studio is going to get funding for a Vita game. We think the back touchscreen is so cool. Of course we'll use that. And you're like, oh my God, guys.
Meanwhile, you go back to the team and you go, guess what, guys? We're going to have to grab some ankle and fucking put in this stupid ass feature or whatever.
Right. Yeah. It's insane.
And it's all of those things. It's in the middle of, the peak of your madness, and they go, you're gonna have to do an E3 demo, even though we told you months ago, because of course you're a smart developer and you ask, are we gonna have to do an E3 demo? They go, no. And of course, right when it's like, yes, you have to. And of course,
right. Or they say it's not yes you have. It's like no you don't have to, but you're throwing away a chance to get your game in front of hundreds of thousands of people. But sure, don't worry about it. Don't do it if you don't want to.
Exactly.
Jaffe wants some more monitors on the show floor. He's doing a demo. Fuck, all right, whatever. Yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain. But so this game, this was interesting to me because I remember this game comes out. It sold over 1 million copies. I know IGN gave it a 9. I always remember that. It was that's brilliantly reviewed. But on the whole, though, I don't know where it sits at Metacritic, but it was a well-reviewed game. It was a great selling game. And I was always surprised that it kind of came out and I think you guys got a couple of DLCs, like there was a Zeus download and there may have been one other one if I remember. And then it kind of went crickets, right? Yeah. And I was always curious, and I'm sure the audience, because there's a lot of fans of the game in the chat. I was always curious, what do you think? Because this thing should have been evergreen. Superbot should still be in business by all pieces of logic, and you guys should be on like the 3rd iteration of this for PS5, and it should just be a service game at this point. They still need to make this game. What happened to this game?
First I want to say I would never badmouth Sony and the family. It's sort of like,
I will.
We both grew up in there. I have a lot of love for Sony, but
me too. But here's the good news, Chan. Most of the people there's a few that are still there. Most of them are gone. So fuck the rest of them. But that's it.
Well, yeah, I think it was really a classic business decision, right? It's people that didn't know. I mean, they were looking at it just from the numbers and saying, wait a minute, additional characters are expensive, whatever, like just in terms of the game itself, not thinking more broadly about what the opportunity was for an all-star cast, whether it was in a battle royale game the way that we imagined it or as some other property. But you don't throw away AAA game developers that win Game of the Year awards. Like, it's just...
Well, I'm not saying that you do if you're Microsoft, but if you're Sony, you shouldn't.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, yeah. I'm not obviously I'm biased, right? But
sure.
As somebody that's worked at Sony, right, as a producer, even for external titles, where we're responsible for looking for quality developers and doing games with them and stuff like that. I mean, that's the criteria. If you find an award-winning developer that's available for hire, you go in and you find and you work with those people. And if you groom them as almost like a second party within Sony as an incubated studio, I mean, I would imagine you're less apt to throw them away as well. Even if, again, like, okay, that one didn't work. I know you guys are a specialty sort of fighting game studio at this point, but there's lots of other things that we can move on to in terms of development. We're all like capable and experienced developers.
But what, I mean, when you're dealing with not just the awards, but you're dealing with good reviews, you're dealing with, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it did sell over 1 million copies.
Yes, I believe it did.
It broke even, I assume.
At least, again, that's across 2 platforms too. So it was Vita and PS3 with crossplay. So, yeah. I think.
Okay, so then why did they, somebody in the chat's like, what do you mean the characters were expensive? I thought you owned them. You mean the creation of a character? The
creation of the characters and new
the move sets, the animations,
all of the mashup elements. I mean, it was an arduous game to put together.
So let me ask, for one character and all that comes with that character, background, like you said, the cutscenes, the move sets, the voiceover, what would it cost you to make a character from scratch to put into the game at the time?
Oh shit. God, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was not trivial.
Right.
It was sort of like, I don't know if it was purely just broken down by the characters, but also the environments and so forth. And, like, I don't know how I calculated all of that necessarily for Sony, but I think it ultimately came down to, what the sequel would cost at the end of the day, the number that I gave them.
Got
it. And it was ultimately, during the time, they had canceled this before the awards. So I guess that's one thing that you can say is they didn't know we were an award-winning studio
right
at the time.
Right.
And it
Looking
was
back,
just on the cusp for PS4, that transition. So they were
that's
very
true.
kind of penny pinchy at the time.
Looking back now, do you think would there, if I look at something like Multiverses that I'm sure you've tracked and you've been aware of, and it's coming out again this week, the 23rd. They're relaunching that game. One of their biggest problems with the game that they said, which is why they kind of pulled it back in, is they didn't have enough content for a service game to continually keep people interested in coming back. If you were to go back in time or today start a new All-Stars, do you think there's a way to create the characters for less money, or is there a way to come up with a way to keep a game like that fresh without having to wait 4 months for a new character drop?
I think that, and I'll be the first to say that I'm not the fighting game expert, right? Like, that was Omar, that was Paul Edwards. They were all the great designers.
You guys brought a bunch of fighting experts in, right? Wasn't Killian that guy? Sean Killian wasn't he part of it?
Seth Killian.
Seth Killian,
brought in
yeah.
on the Sony side as a lead combat designer, or a lead designer, I think, fighting game designer specifically, to give us advice. But we had, Mike Bilodeau and Ed Ma and all these great, fighting game dudes that were all from Paradox. Because again, like, Paradox was those were the fighting game experts.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily like my favorite genre in terms of a game to make. I love the idea of bringing the entire cast together of these All-Stars for Sony IP. That's what I was thrilled about. In terms of the nitty-gritty and the combat design and all those things, I left it obviously to the designers and the director to be experts in that area. So I don't know, but I suspect that if we took maybe a more of a modular kind of approach, which I think we were trying to do in terms of the character design to a certain extent, right? And have sort of archetypes.
Right, more like Brawlhalla or something, right?
Right, that most new characters kind of fall into and go, oh, he's sort of similar to this character, and a lot of fighting games I think fall into that, where they go, oh, it's sort of like this character, but with a smattering of this, or it's a little bit different of that.
Right.
I think we were really, really focused on trying to give each character its own sort of like unique vibe and unique feel. And I think when we go to that level of customization and really thinking about movesets, there's really not much similar between what Kratos is doing and Sackboy. And I remember when we were going to pitch Little Big Planet that, hey, Sackboy's not a fighter, and we're like, we know that. But there are many martial arts that don't have to do anything with offensive. Like, we wanted to make him passive, jujitsu.
Oh, right.
Aikido, and using things like banana peels and things that were like charming.
Right.
Instead of,
I like that they're like, who said Sackboy's not a fighter? The Media Molecule guys?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he's also not real, you idiot. You fucking morons. Yes, we know. Is he not a fighter? Is he not? We didn't know that. We'll pack our bags and head back to America. We're sorry for wasting your time.
So that's
Idiots.
probably why, you wouldn't have been the first choice as ambassador to get
No. Or I would have said, you know what? Let's talk fucking money. Let's talk about how this is going to push your character into people's lives that aren't inclined to care about Sackboy right now, is what I would have fucking said. I mean, it's like you go through Mario Kart and do a psychoanalysis of every character who should be behind the wheel. It's like Diddy Kong, he's a little too young to be driving the cart. He's too fucking young. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous horse shit. Anyway.
Yes.
But when we've caught up again a couple of weeks ago, you were like, I know we were both kind of talking about, it's so crazy that we haven't seen Sony take this IP and run with it, whether it's a Smash Bros game or a kart game or a hero shooter or a Marvel Snap Hearthstone. I mean, they've got this beloved intellectual property, cavalcade, and you'd think that have you been approached since by them to do anything with it, or not really?
No, they haven't. Sony hit me up.
Yeah, fuck, hit them up. I've never met anybody that when we start talking about PlayStation Kart, PlayStation Allstars, combat like you guys made, or any of those things, I've never seen anyone go, "Oh, that's stupid." Everyone's like, "Yeah, that would be cool." I don't get it. I don't get it. So
I don't get it either. The other thing is, I think that this is from very, very early on. I had always asked Sony to consider that, like, entertainment going beyond just games. Right? You've got these properties that you can create, worlds and stories and narratives and all these kinds of things that are just interesting. That people are fans. When I
right.
saw that cinematic between the War of the Gods and the Titans in God of War, I was like, that needs to be a fucking like motion graphics series spin-off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Tell me the fucking story. Give me more.
But they're doing it now though with PlayStation Productions.
That's what I'm saying. That they're doing it now, but this is like they had an opportunity all those years ago that again I think would have been pretty like groundbreaking and unique at the time. Because there just wasn't a lot of that with at least with premier game IP.
I think one of the things that people, including us who work there or any company, it's like you think a company like Sony has this like council of brilliant people of like 4 people that can see all this stuff, and it's just like it's in so many ways, it's just like if your high school job working at the movie theater, and there's the politics, and this guy wants to do this, and this guy gets what he wants because he's too valuable to fire, but it pisses off this guy, and all of that comes into play that affects your entertainment at a game level, but you don't see it, and so from the outside looking in, you're just like, how are you guys such stupid fucking idiots? Make this shit, but I would love it. I would love it.
Sony, as innovative as they have been, it came to realize this, is that they're still a conservative Japanese company. Go up to Foster City, and I was pitching basically what would be like the DJ equivalent of like Guitar Hero or something like that for PSP at the time.
Okay,
it's like, hey, let's make the PSP into a beat making machine.
Cool.
It's something unique and different and something you can do that's portable and cool. And so we go all the way to Foster City, and we meet with Kazurai and Andy, because we were talking about like the legal implications of samples and stuff, and we're meeting with legal, and Kaz stands up and they're like, we're Sony, we're first party, we innovate, gave this really like stirring sort of like, this is who we are thing. And I was like, fuck yeah. And then we turn around and we find out like they're not going to do anything innovative, and they just want to do like sequels of existing games ported over to the PSP. Or like, that's not innovative. Like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just, why would I want to fucking play that on a portable machine when it's like the experience is 10 times better just on the console?
That even today when people talk about, Sony should make a handheld, I'm like, maybe, but Sony's biggest problem with handheld has always been that they never broke off divisions and just said, you're our 20 handheld teams. And they just tried to shove these big games into a little screen. And it doesn't mean it can't work. I mean, the Steam Deck shows it can work, but more often than not, you'd like some games that are built from the ground up for the mentality of someone who's going to be playing it on a subway, but
I feel like you need to have at least a handful of titles that are like that, right?
Yeah,
that really,
or teams that really get that. Like Nintendo, before they tied it together with the Switch, there were totally separate teams that understood handheld gaming, different than console gaming. But
exactly.
Who were some of the things you guys really wanted for All-Stars? I mean, obviously Spyro and Crash, but were there any other ones that you were surprised you couldn't get that you were going after? You didn't get Snake or Laura, right?
We didn't want fucking Emo Dante.
That's what they were offering, was the Emo Dante, the DMC Dante?
That's what we had. We got Emo Dante instead of the cool Dante.
Did you say we don't want that?
Well, yeah. We said we would prefer the Dante everybody else wants. But at that point, again, it's one of those things where it's not necessarily in our hands anymore.
Sure. Okay.
And the same thing with we wanted Snake obviously over Raiden, so that was another thing. And then sort of insult to injury was Raiden was what caused us to actually delay our release. So as developers, we always take pride in not missing deadlines or making our dates,
Right.
and we did until we didn't because of
Why was Raiden so? Was it he was just a difficult character, or it was the approvals from
it was the
Konami?
approvals. It was God. Now I've purged his name from my head because I said if I ever see him,
Kojima?
Kojima. Yes, I can't even believe I'm not remembering Kojima, but yeah, it was Kojima's fucking fault. You know,
What was it? He just you
he
guys you
just he's God. I can't remember,
he
but it
won't
was
move this way, or he wouldn't
yeah,
do that.
like I approved this. It was all approved, and again, it wasn't approved at the last minute. And I think it's because they made some change for a trade show that now they wanted to, make in our game and all that kind of nonsense. So, that's the one thing I'll say about All Stars is, when you go through Psycho 50 and all the other games that we made, and some of them that never came to light, uh, All Stars was a game that we overcame things that many other previous games were killed for. You know,
Like what?
um, like approvals,
Oh,
uh,
right, right.
uh, things like God, what else were? God, I can't remember the specifics now, but it was things like approvals. It was things like um, not knowing whether we were going to be able to hit our frame rates for four player over net. Those kinds of things that were serious.
Were you guys using a proprietary engine on All Stars?
It was the Bluepoint engine that we
Oh, Bluepoint.
licensed
Okay,
from Bluepoint.
gotcha. Okay,
But we had to hire some pretty heavy hitters. Boris was his name that came in and really helped us optimize our frame rate so that we can run at our target frame rate online for players. So that was something again that we didn't know whether we were gonna be able to achieve or not. And
right.
oftentimes those kinds of things can easily be like, nah, if you guys haven't proven it by now, you know, we don't have
We're gonna
faith,
kill
or
it.
we're gonna kill it or whatever
Yeah.
it may be.
Well, I'm
So
glad they didn't. I mean, good God, was it? I'm trying to think who, Crash and Laura and Snake. I'm trying to think. Was there anybody that people would be surprised to hear you guys wanted but you didn't get?
I'm trying to think.
Like it would have to be something more obscure. I mean, the fact that you guys remembered Polygon Man, let alone put him in the game, that was pretty great. That was pretty fucking great.
Yeah, I think there was more Shadow of the Colossus stuff that was just off limits. They're like, you can't have anything Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh God, so dumb.
But I think we were, for the most part, it was Spyro and Crash. That was like just constant bombardment. Where's Spyro? Where's Crash? Totally understandable, but it was just sort of out of our hands. We didn't own them anymore.
Right.
And what they wanted for them was pretty outrageous.
What about the game? The game Sony comes to you and says, "Okay, we're done." Were you guys hustling for X months trying to get another deal, or was it almost like the next day it was like we were at the end of the runway and it was over? I mean, what was that process like? Because I've had my studio shut down because Sony came in and said, "Okay, you're a nice guy, but no." We're canceling the project. And I just didn't have it in me at that point to kind of hustle to try to find more work. I was over it. And Nick was over it to some extent. I mean, Nick's gone on to run,
That's No Moon.
That's No Moon. Nick's great fucking producer. But for me, I think I was like, okay, I climbed that mountain as far as I'm going to get and I'm good. But for you guys, I mean, how much of a shock was it and what was your response? And when was the moment you're like, okay, let's wrap it up because we're not going to get anything else?
It was definitely unexpected. It was out of the blue. At that point, I thought we were all in agreement that we would need to do a sequel, and there was a ton of opportunity for this. It had aligned really well with that Here's to Michael campaign, and that was sort of like, it wasn't on purpose. It was just inadvertently, coincidentally.
You mean all the characters and all that stuff?
All the characters. That's sort of like all character celebration and sort of fan celebration kind of feeling to it all. So yeah, it came out of left field, and immediately we started thinking of new ideas and pitching them, but at least talking to other publishers to see if they had any games that they were, wanting to make and just looking for a really solid developer. At that point, we were pretty pigeonholed into a fighting game development team.
Okay.
And that was pretty difficult. I think if it had we made any other sort of genre game, I think we would have stood a lot better chance of getting picked up. But I think they really kind of looked at us as sort of like a fighting game team, which in honesty we were. But I think again, there are other titles that could have translated to. But that's what ultimately made it difficult. And eventually we had to sort of shutter and just close it down.
Yeah.
I mean, it never closed down completely. I've been kind of running it ever since. But
like as a corporate entity, it's still there. You guys, I was so jealous of y'all's webpage. You guys had the best fucking webpage because we started Bartlett Jones, and I was just like, look at their fucking webpage. That's shit. That's awesome. But okay, and then I know you got into the VR and the AR, and I won't tell anybody what you're doing now, but it's very, very cool. So you guys have not heard the last of Chan and his brilliant ideas. I'm very much looking forward to seeing where that goes. So, but would you be open to taking some questions? If you want to talk to Chan, the link is here. I'll get some super chats in the meantime, but if you're on YouTube or you're on Twitch, click that link. You don't have to be on camera, but you do have to be on audio. Come on in, talk to Good Sir Chan. In the meantime, let's get some super chats and see what you guys are asking. Where did it go? Okay. AAA, thank you, buddy. He says, I was a massive All-Stars fan. Played it on the Vita. Not going to lie, I didn't know anyone else who played it, but I felt like my precious secret. It was so much fun. So he's just sharing his. Thank you for that, buddy.
You.
G says, thank you, buddy. He says, where did the codename Title Fight come from? There was a codename Title Fight?
Yeah, that was our working title. We had we were going through a lot of different name ideas, as well as a lot of different game mechanic ideas of how this fighting game would actually pan out and what the key mechanic for, scoring victories or defeating your opponents would be, win conditions and so forth. So, yeah, Title Fight was sort of like the best of what we could think of at the time. And eventually PlayStation Allstars Battle Royale was not something that came up from the team. That was definitely a marketing
thing. Okay. Eddie T, been around for 43 months. Thank you, sir. He says, would you agree that Crash Bandicoot is forever the PlayStation mascot? He was even in Pizza Hut ads. Joel and Alloy don't have that type of star power.
Yeah, I would.
I mean, mascots are kind of a dead thing now anyway, but I mean, he was probably the last great console mascot.
It was the one that, Sony didn't really have one. So it's sort of like that was the de facto. Yeah, I never thought it was as strong as obviously Mario, but it was the best that we had at the time.
And we didn't even really have it. It wasn't ours.
And we didn't have it.
You'd think they would have written a nice big check to Universal, but maybe they had no desire. But
I would say if there was a sort of a mascot for Sony now, it would be Kratos.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, old Kratos. Whatever.
So thank God we got him. Thanks, Dave.
Well, he ain't mine no more. I don't like the new Kratos. I mean, I like the first new Kratos game, but I just think he's gotten all moody and and people try to come at me and tell me it's like, oh, he's grown up. And I'm like, yeah, fine. But I don't care because I've grown up, but I still like to have some fucking fun. And he used to be a badass motherfucker, and now he's this whiny little bitch. No, thank you. Maxwell, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. He says, please go back to Sony and ask Herman to let you make a new All-Stars. That's a game that deserves another chance. We need it. So
Herman was wonderful to us with Colonel Raddick, by the way, and getting Killzone into the game. That was like one of the best developer trips I had, meeting with them.
That's good to know.
Going to Gorilla and checking out their operation. I was like, man, these guys are awesome.
Yeah. Now you'd be forced to put Alloy in every fucking... It's like, you can have it. We'll make a new one, but it's got to all be Alloy. They're obsessed with that fucking character. Hey, Dave Goodrich. Remember Dave Goodrich? I think you worked with Goodrich. He says, all these old names are a trip down memory lane. Shannon gave me my first job at Black Ops way back in the day. I knew a few Broodworks folks. Yeah, they were... Goodrich was over at... who are the Vigilante 8 guys? Luxoflux. In Santa Monica. Right. So yeah, there was a whole little group there in Santa Monica for a while, but thanks for that, Goodrich. G says incredible stages and transitions into other IP. in Allstars. Yeah, I loved those. I love the fact that the only place I can get a professional real version of Sweet Tooth and Kratos fighting is from Allstars. I think that's the coolest fucking thing. I love that,
awesome.
man. Okay, for Mr. Park says, awesome, Tatum. Thank you, buddy. He says, what games are you playing right now? What are you excited about that's coming up?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I've got sort of so little time that I find myself being very, very selective about big up and coming games to play. I really kind of focus on sort of like my most recent one. If I played both of the God of Wars, but these all take a significant amount of time to play now.
Yeah.
So Ghost of Tsushima, though,
that's great.
God, in the last 10 years, it's absolutely like that's the game. I'm so fucking jealous of that team making. Kurosawa's always been my favorite director. Sanjiro's always been my favorite movie. So the fact that they did that movie, it just made that game. I think of it as a movie. What a masterpiece! Like that was a fucking masterpiece. I played the shit out of that game. But usually, if I have a little bit of time here and there, I go back to Civilization 6.
Yep.
It's just kind of a favorite one. I can just zone out and play. And, I'll try and hit a couple of new games here and there. But, yeah, mostly sticking with kind of big open world kind of stuff.
And you, correct me if I'm right, you have kids, right?
Yeah.
Do they game much or they're not really into it?
Oh, Coleman's going to, he's a game major over at SC, so he loves games.
Oh, at USC?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love USC. That place has changed so much.
Yeah, that's your alma mater, isn't it?
Yeah. So their game school is really second to none. What is he studying there? What aspect?
Yeah, AI and I think it's just regular production.
That's cool. That's excellent. That's excellent. It's amazing what they play, though. I mean, I tell everybody, my kids came up with Minecraft and Roblox and all that shit, and they don't even care about big AAA games. Their friends' game, but they're playing Fortnite still.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean it's remarkable. I mean, again, it's a different kind of gaming.
Yeah,
and it's so funny because he's super into esports, so he's talking to me a lot about just gaming and stuff in general, and I know that definitely from talking to him that there's a different generation, and a lot of the stuff is just like, whoosh, and I've been in the industry for a long time, but he's so hardcore into, the meta of specific games and how it's changed and why, so he's really doing a lot in terms of breaking stuff down and analysis.
What year is he there at SC?
He's the third year now.
Okay, because I know they just had their showcase for the seniors. I was going to go, and I kind of got the date wrong, but I love that every May seeing all the new games coming out that they worked on. It's every now and then you'll be like, whoa, that's somebody to keep an eye on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a brilliant program. I mean,
Agreed.
I'm very grateful that gets to be a part of it that time. But yeah, everybody out of that program, like we've hired a bunch of people throughout just all the various companies I've worked with, and yeah, amazing kids.
Carlos Hernandez, thank you, buddy. 33 months membership. I appreciate that. He says, how hard was it to work with Jaffe? I heard he gets grumpy when they improve his work.
Honestly, Dave, it was awesome working with Dave. There was never a time where you didn't feel like you were learning. I'm serious. But it was also intimidating. Like I said, because you had a clarity of vision and what you wanted, and feeling kind of like, well, I don't have a clarity of vision. I mean, I kind of know what I want it to be. I kind of have more clarity of vision in terms of the concept, but I don't have it in terms of the entirety of the game. Like this is what the game is, including all the aspects of what you're doing at every moment, how things tie to each other, what sort of core mechanics are going to,
Yeah, I mean, Shannon would say that too. She's like, sometimes like you intimidate people, and I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. I never knew what the fuck I was doing. I just was better at bullshitting. That's probably what it was.
Again, it's bullshit.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought I knew what I was doing. I wasn't lying, but I didn't know what I was doing. If a real designer would have shown up and said, because we didn't, I mean, that's the thing. We didn't have, back then, I look at what Microsoft is doing now, and it reminds me, all of their failures remind me so much of all the shit we fucked up the first, PS1 and into the PS2. There were no designers. Becker didn't know. I didn't know. Mike didn't know. You didn't know. We were just kind of making shit up as we went.
Yeah, a lot of it was. I think that's what was exciting about it too, right?
It was cheap enough that we could get away with canceled projects and still keep a job. Now, you can't learn on a $250 million product.
Oh my God, we got paid to learn. That was such a biggest opportunity ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people, when you look back in all different forms of entertainment, where they were like, okay, I didn't maybe know everything, but they were sort of like, the conviction is what them got through, got them through that to a certain extent, where other people, their uncertainty about it was maybe a lot more present, right? It was a lot more sort of evident to other people around them. But I think that it's sort of what I think people knew about you was that you weren't one of those, well, I'll know it when I see it, so just keep fucking doing it. Right? Like, it wasn't that. And it was, no, you're not doing what I have envisioned. That's a very key difference. And I've worked with a lot of people who claim that they're visionaries, but it's sort of like, I'll know it when I see it. Well, who the fuck can't know it when they see it? You know what I mean? That's not the hard part. The hard part is what you were doing.
Well, that's very kind. I appreciate it. It never felt hard. It just felt like I was bullshitting. But that said, though, I appreciate it. When do you think, if everything goes swimmingly, when do you think people can expect to hear about your new exciting project? Which, of course, I won't spoil. But Chan pitched to me a couple weeks ago, and I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Well, I'm hoping by the fall or end of the year.
Okay.
If everything goes as planned.
All right, maybe I can get you to come back on and pitch it once it's all green.
Oh, I would love.
I would love people to hear about it. It's really neat. It's really, really neat. So,
hey,
thank you, Chan. Go ahead.
One thing, Dave, I have to let everybody know of a very, very funny memory.
Oh yeah, go.
We're all in one of our design meetings that we were like, you know what? We're gonna call up the Rodeo Clown Association and say that you were a disgruntled rodeo clown advocate that was upset.
Is there a Rodeo Clown Association?
I think there is, and we actually fucking called because you were all into making funny prank calls and saying, I don't like the portrayal of rodeo clowns in Twisted Metal, or just clowns in Twisted Metal. And
cool. I don't even remember that, Chan. That's terrible.
We were like, what the fuck are you actually calling these people? And the people on the other line, I think it was hilarious, their reaction to it.
I remember in Foster City we called Spielberg, and I pitched him a movie, or I pitched his assistant a movie about a pickle that gained sentience. And I knew it was stupid, but I just wanted to see how close we could get to Spielberg. And we got to somebody who answered the phone outside of his but you can't do prank calls anymore because the goddamn cell phones now. I mean, you can do it on a Google number, but most people are like, it's a scam, but yeah.
No more jerky boys.
No, oh my God, they were the best. You still talk to Linda?
Yeah, just had dim sum with her and her family the other day.
Really? Oh, we'll tell her hi. I know she drove me crazy and I drove her crazy, but she was fun to work with. So
right on.
All right. Thank you, Chan, very much. Hope to talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Anytime, man. See you, Chan.
Bye.
All right. There he goes, folks. The great Chan Park off into the night. Yeah, Pickle Rick. That's right. Chan was the shit, man. And hopefully you guys are going to hear about what he's working on soon. It's pretty fucking cool. Okay. Listen. Let me go back to Hellblade 2 briefly. I want to tell you a couple other thoughts I had on this crazy thing. Where did it go? Un momento, por favor. Zing. Here was my question. So I get a lot of you guys on the show, on the stream, don't give a fuck about Hellblade 2. I get it. Well, Chan is a nice fella. Darth Nugget says Chan seems like a nice fella. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everybody liked Chan. Chan was one of those guys at the office that nobody didn't like. My job was always very lonely at Sony. No, I mean, I had friends at Sony, but in terms of like, I wasn't the guy that people were like, let's go have lunch, Jaffe. Because, I don't know, maybe it's like Chan says, maybe I intimidated people, or maybe they just thought I was an asshole. But Chan's one of those people that everybody digs. Nicest fucking guy. Andreas says, yeah, sure, Andreas, why not? It's all about you. He says, Jaffe, I missed the beginning of the show. Can you please summarize your Hellblade opinions? I enjoyed it. I first played it last night. I didn't play the first game, but I played a Hellblade 2. And I thought it was really pretentious and slow and obnoxious. And I was just like, this is so fucking stupid. I hated it. But I woke up this morning because I sometimes do that. And especially when I'm streaming a game that really doesn't need to be streamed. That's a game that you want to just be in the world. And I've come around to it. I really like it. I don't think it's game of the year, but it's really interesting. I like that it's short. I haven't finished it. I've probably played about 3.5 hours of it, and I'm happy with it. It's a Game Pass game in the sense that I don't know if I would have. I don't know. I don't mind spending $70 on a game like this. It looks great. Yeah, I like it. It's compelling. But I don't know if I'll finish it, even if it is really slow. But I do think my initial take, Eddie T says, I woke up this morning and the first thing I saw was Jaffe saying it's more pretentious than Naughty Dog games. That's what it felt like last night. It absolutely felt like that. And I don't know if it was because I was tired or because the opening is just so fucking slow and I didn't know there was a run button and on it and if. But when I woke up this morning, I played it and I've really enjoyed it. And here's my question though. My question is, so here's this game that is doing really well when it comes to reviews right now. It's sitting at an 82 on Metacritic. Is this, if this comes out and it hangs at that score, and then Avowed comes out, Indie comes out, Call of Duty comes out, it's all similarly well received. Do things turn around for these guys? Or, especially if these things don't come to, they are coming to PlayStation. So I guess the question is this really the beginning of something for Xbox or not really? Yeah, Victor Lucas says, Samian says, he's usually more charitable to these kinds of games, but he gave it a 6.5 and saying it didn't have enough meat on the bones. The biggest criticism I saw was people saying that it was old game design. But again, I didn't play the first one. There says it's very much like the first game. But since I didn't play the first one, I didn't feel that, JSD says, finish Elden Ring, you coward. I want to. And I saw the trailer today. I want to very, very much. And I will. Maybe I'll try to stream it and you guys can help me finish it. Andrea says, I have high hopes. Indy Jones is a freaking gangbuster. I do too. I love that character. I don't think so because that's fine, says Eddie T, but nothing that will make people buy an Xbox or get Game Pass. Yeah, maybe as a group. Maybe at the end of the year, if you're like, holy shit, Avowed, Indie, Call of Duty, everybody is saying that this game is great. Hellblade 2. You guys aren't, but the reviews are saying a lot of them are saying it's great. But anyway, we'll see. But I don't know. I don't know if they're going to close the studio down. I heard they say they're not, but they say that every day. You never get told till you get told, Okay. I liked Hellblade a lot. I get it's not for everyone, though, says JSD. Yeah, no, I hear you. But so far, I'm digging it. Old Dad Gamer says, I put in 4 hours of it. The combat is literally brain dead. Love the visuals and the audio. I'm enjoying the combat. It's not a gamey game combat, but I like the mirror that you can use, and I like it feels really impactful. I think it's fun, but you know, uh, after Elden Ring says Movie Maniac, you must play Sekiro. Oh, I can't with these Souls games anymore. I want to finish Elden Ring, play the DLC. I'm playing No Rest for the Wicked. That's it. I can't do it anymore. It's too much. It's too much. Joey says I'm excited to jump into it this weekend. Yeah, let us know what you think. Absolutely. So Hellblade is the most fake edgy game I have seen, says Malad. I thought the same until I played it this morning. I thought the same. But I don't feel that way now. So, you know. Thank you for that, Film Gamer X. I appreciate it. Film Gamer has just gifted a membership to this very channel. Thank you, buddy. That's very, very nice of you. Very, very kind, courteous. Thanks, bud. You just deleted Diablo 4 again, Mutant Mo. I've been playing the shit out of that game, man. I love that. Any games you look forward to for the rest of 2024? I mean, yeah, Indiana Jones. I am looking forward to Avowed because I like the promise that they've made that it's very open in terms of ways to play it, things to discover. You know, what else? Indiana Jones, Avowed. I love Call of Duty, so I'm a fan. There's probably a lot more, but I just, you know, there's so many, and nothing comes to mind, you know. Andreas is playing System Shock tonight, the remake. Yeah, it's on console now. I mean, I got turned off by the demo of that because I don't know what I'm supposed to pick up in that game. And every time you come into a room, you can pick up everything, you know, potato chip bag wrappers and plastic zip ties and medical trays, things that you don't think have anything to do with the gameplay, but you don't know, so you may as well fucking pick it up. And it's just games like that I struggle with because I'm like, how am I supposed to know, you know, what to fucking pick up when I play this fucking thing? So we'll see. But yeah, but I'll give it a look. I'll give it a look. Hassam says, Jaffe, I love you, Jaffe. You saved my life with God of War 2. Well, I didn't direct it. Corey did, but a lot of us worked on it. And I'm curious, how did that game save your life? Brandon says, Jaffe, have you tried Immortals of Avium? I have not. I haven't. I've downloaded it. It's sitting on my PS5. But no, I have not. Old Dad says, I had a hard-on for Banisher's Ghost of New Eden. Great game. Haven't finished it. Loved it, though. Played about 12 hours of it. I hear it's really wears out its welcome and becomes samey, and I get bored of games if they do that. Jaffe, you said you loved horror. What is the horror series from your teen years from the 80s you'd love to see made into a game? Oh, I do love horror, but I mean, that's a hard question because on one hand, I think something like Freddy Krueger lends itself better to gameplay than anything else, like from the 80s. Like Jason and Freddy, I mean, Jason and Michael Myers and Candyman, that's the 90s, but all that shit is great. But the only thing they really bring as a gameplay element are them as a character. And if you play them, you might have some interesting supernatural mechanics, but fundamentally, though, with Freddy, you know, the environment and the mechanics, because you're in a dream that's being controlled by a maniac, could be really fucking cool. And I think playing Freddy in some kind of like action, almost, I don't like RTSs, but where you are controlling the dreams of the teenagers and you are trying to fuck with them, I think could be really cool too. I think The Shining, I don't think The Shining fundamentally makes a great game, but I would love someone to figure out a way to do a game that kind of feels that way, that makes you feel that disturbed. One moment, fellas. So I don't know. That's what I would say. Okay, if all the games from Microsoft stick the 80s and 90s and the new Call of Duty is great and free on Game Pass, it stands a chance. I think they may not turn their current business around, but in terms of right now, but I would love to see them turn around. Like, it would be nice to go, you know what? Maybe the team they have in place now can actually do their job. And so maybe this Game Pass vision is actually going to work. That would be great. But I don't have a lot of faith just because of one fucking game. All right, fellas, there you go. That's been the show for today. Let me tell you what's coming up this week. I'm off tomorrow. I'll be putting out some videos tomorrow. Somebody was asking about a super chat. I didn't see your super chat. I just looked. It's not there. But anyway, yeah. So I'll be back Thursday and Friday, 5 o'clock, Gabbin' and Games. Then Saturday, we've got a new I Love the Weird coming up. If you're considering a membership, a subscription, consider it. Consider it here. Consider it Patreon. Like the video. Tell your friends. No, I'm not streaming anything tonight. I'm going to try to finish up Hellblade 2 if I can, but and I've been playing X Define as well. But if I stream anything tonight, it'll be that. But in the meantime, and again, thank you, Chan. Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you for the super chats, guys. It said it charged you, Leo Jimmy. I don't see it. I see you though. Would you like to ask your question before I go? I'll keep an eye out for it. Don't pay for it, but no, I do not see your super chat. But what would you like to know? Chan Park, you old knucklehead. Chan Park's become a member. Look at that, fellas. See, I told you, how can you hate Chan? Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Chan is now a member of, I can't tell what he's a member of because I can't see the tier, but let's assume it's the Diet Soldiers. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, I'm looking for it, Leo Jimmy. What you got, man? What you got? Give it to Benoist. You goddamn right, Benoist Legends. I watched her fucking show, Girls on the Bus on Max. Man, that's my girlfriend. That's my wife. What the fuck is Chan, says Tim. Figure it out, bitch. Yeah. He says, I platinumed PlayStation Allstars 2 twice on Vita and PS3. I always thought Sony should have done an Avengers Endgame type. All their characters trying to stop God of War 3 Kratos as a last boss. Cool. I mean, I don't think they ever would. The fact that they didn't see what they had in in All-Stars should let you know, probably not. But still, that's could be cool. I'm with you. Am I going to play Assassin's Creed Shadow? Yeah, absolutely. You had a very difficult time to your childhood. Kratos saved my life and gave me hope. Oh, man, that's nice. That's nice. Well, I am so glad that the work that we did brought you seriously, because, I think everybody struggles at times in their childhood. I certainly had a wonderful childhood, but it also was filled with crazy, and it's always nice to know that we were able to contribute a little bit to some of the things that brought you some joy at a time that you needed it. That's what a neat thing to know. And thank you for sharing that. That means a great deal to me. Thanks, buddy. And members of the team that watch this from time to time, I'm sure they would echo that same sentiment, Hassam. Okay. That's it. Because you know what's sad? Tonight's the last episode ever of The Good Doctor. Come on. Sad. Although I'm not going to watch it tonight. I'm going to watch it on Hulu with the family tomorrow. But the point is, sad. That's it, my friends. Be well, be safe. I'll see you on the next show. I'll see you on the internet. Hit me up on Twitter if you need me. I'll be around or on the Discord. All right, fellas. I'll talk to you soon. Well, JS, come on now. All right, thank you for the super chat. He says, wait, don't finish Elden Ring if you're going to do the DLC. Why? Why would I not finish Elden Ring? I want to finish Elden Ring so I can do the DLC. Right? I don't want to play the DLC if I haven't finished the core game, right? Anyway, hopefully I'll see you on a future show this week. Let me know what you're talking about. But I'm going to head out for now. But thank you for that super chat and all your support. I'm out. See you guys. Bye.